I pushed open the front door, expecting the usual. My wife curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone, maybe a soft, "Hey, you're home," thrown my way. Instead, the house felt different. Too quiet. Too cold. Like it already knew something I didn't. Then I saw her. She stood in the middle of the living room, dressed in that red dress I used to love. The one she only wore on special occasions. Except tonight, it wasn't for me. Her makeup was flawless, lips painted the same shade as her dress, but her eyes, those damn eyes, held something else. Guilt? Nerves? Excitement? I dropped my keys on the table, the clatter breaking the silence. "Going somewhere?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she smiled. A fake, plastic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just out with some friends." Lie. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. I could taste it in the air, thick and suffocating. Maybe I should have ignored the uneasy feeling, played dumb, let it slide like all the other times she came home late with half-baked excuses. But not tonight. Tonight something snapped. I stepped closer, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Friends," I repeated, tilting my head. "Funny, because last week you said you were working late. And the week before that, it was a girls' night." She blinked, shifting her weight. "What are you trying to say?" I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. "I'm saying," I whispered, "I know." A flicker of panic crossed her face, gone as quickly as it came. "Know what?" she asked, her voice too casual, too controlled. I let the silence stretch, watching her squirm. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. The color drained from her face. A picture. Of her. In that same red dress. Sitting in a car, his car. I watched her throat bob as she swallowed hard. "It's not what it looks like," she blurted out. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "That's the best you've got." She opened her mouth, but no words came. Because what excuse could possibly erase the truth? I took a step back, shoving my hands into my pockets to keep them from shaking. "Go ahead," I said, nodding toward the door. "Go out. Have fun. But don't expect to come back to the same life you're leaving behind." For the first time that night, real fear flashed in her eyes. And that's when I knew. She never thought I'd find out. Never thought I'd fight back. But she was about to learn the hard way. She underestimated the wrong man. They say the worst betrayals come from the people you trust the most. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming. But love has a funny way of blinding you to the obvious. For 10 years, I thought we had the perfect marriage. We weren't just husband and wife. We were best friends, partners in crime, each other's safe haven. I worked long hours, but it was for us, for the life we were building. And in return, she was my rock. The one person I thought would always have my back. Our mornings started with sleepy kisses and coffee. Evenings were filled with laughter over dinner, our legs tangled under the table, like we were still newlyweds. We talked about everything, dreams, future plans, even silly things like what we'd name our non-existent dog someday. I thought she was happy. I thought we were happy. Then, little things started to change. At first, it was small, too small to notice unless you were looking for it. The way her phone was always face down. The sudden obsession with going to the gym, even though she used to say she hated working out. The new perfume, the one she never wore around me. Then came the nights where she was working late. The last-minute cancellations of our plans. The distracted look in her eyes, like she was somewhere else even when she was right beside me. I told myself it was just a rough patch. That all couples go through ups and downs. But deep down, something ugly and cold had started growing inside me, a feeling I didn't want to name. Until the night, everything fell apart. It was a Friday. I left work early, deciding to surprise her with dinner. I picked up her favorite takeout, grabbed a bottle of wine, and drove home, already picturing the smile on her face when she saw me. Except she wasn't home. I called her. No answer. Texted. Left on read. Something wasn't right. I tried to shake it off, but a gut feeling told me to check something. Something I had never considered before. Find my iPhone. We had shared our locations with each other for years. It was just something we did out of convenience, never because we had to. But tonight, I opened the app with a tightness in my chest. Her phone wasn't at work. It wasn't anywhere near her office. It was across town, in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. A part of me wanted to shut the app, pretend I hadn't seen anything. But another part, the part that already knew the truth, wouldn't let me. So I drove. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to a dimly lit street. Parked cars lined the road, but one stood out. His car. I had seen it before, dropping her off at work once. Back then, I didn't think anything of it. Just a coworker, she had said. A coworker. Right. My hands clenched the steering wheel as I watched the house. The curtains were open just enough for me to see inside. And there she was sitting on his couch, laughing, leaning in too close. Her hand on his thigh. His fingers brushing her cheek. Something inside me snapped. I could have stormed in, could have made a scene. But I didn't. Because in that moment, rage turned to something else. Cold calculation. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted justice. So I took out my phone, aimed the camera, and hit record. If she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. She had no idea that her perfect little secret was about to become my perfect plan. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The moment I saw her with him, something inside me shattered. But instead of drowning in pain, my mind sharpened. The anger didn't consume me, it fueled me. I wasn't going to scream, beg, or ask why. No, I was going to do something much better. I sat in the dark living room, the glow of my laptop screen casting shadows on the walls. My fingers moved fast, my heart pounding as I typed. First, I logged into our shared phone account. She had no idea that years ago I had set up in my name. She also had no idea that meant I could see every number she called, every text she sent. And there it was. His number. Dozens of messages. Calls at odd hours. Late at night, early in the morning. A pattern that started months ago. I clicked on the records, scanning through them like a detective piecing together a crime scene. The timestamps matched all her excuses, working late girls' night, feeling sick and needing space. Lies. All of them. I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to make sure she felt every ounce of betrayal. I did. Next step, surveillance. I ordered a small GPS tracker from a same-day delivery service and attached it under the bumper of her car before she woke up. It was almost too easy. She never checked. Never questioned. The moment she left the house, I pulled up the tracking app on my phone. She told me she was going to the office. The dot on the screen told me she was lying. Her destination. His house. My hands tightened into fists, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't ready to make my move yet. I needed more. Proof that would leave no room for denial. So I waited. And I planned. That evening, I set up hidden cameras around the house. One in the living room, another in the bedroom, a third in the hallway. If she brought him here, I'd see it. If she lied to my face, I'd have the truth waiting for her. But I wasn't done. I needed to know everything. Not just where she was going, but what she was saying. That's when I remembered her laptop. She always left it on the kitchen counter, barely locked. I knew enough about her passwords to guess them within minutes. And when I got in, my breath caught in my throat. Emails. Hundreds of them. Messages filled with secrets she never intended for me to see. Plans to meet up. Jokes about how easy it was to fool me. A conversation from just last week where she told him she wished she had met him first. That one nearly broke me. But I didn't break. Instead, I copied everything. Every message, every email, every damn word. I transferred them to a flash drive and tucked it into my pocket. This wasn't just proof. This was ammunition. Over the next few days, I followed her patterns. I tracked her movements, noted her behavior. I watched her walk through the door every night with a tired smile, acting like nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek, told me she loved me, then turned around and texted him the moment I wasn't looking. She had no idea I was watching. She had no idea her time was running out. The day of reckoning had arrived, and she didn't have a clue. She thought she was getting away with it, thought I was the same clueless, devoted husband who'd never suspect a thing. But today, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. I had planned everything down to the last detail. The trap was set, the pieces in place. Now all I had to do was sit back and watch her world burn. That morning, I acted normal. Kissed her on the forehead before work. Told her I'd be home late. Even made a joke about ordering pizza for dinner. She laughed, oblivious, texting him under the table. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The final act began that evening. She thought she was heading out for another secret date with him. I knew because I had seen the message she sent earlier. He's working late. Meet me at our spot. Can't wait to see you, Red Heart. Her spot. What a joke. She left around 7 p.m., dressed up like she was about to star in some cheap romance movie. I watched her from the window, her heels clicking against the pavement as she got into her car. Then I got to work. The first thing I did was send out a little invitation. A group message to a select few people. Her parents, her closest friends, a couple of her coworkers. And, of course, her dear lover's wife. You might want to tune in. Big surprise tonight. Winking face. Attached was a live stream link. See, while she was out playing the perfect mistress, I had taken the liberty of installing cameras not just in our house, but in his place too. Tiny, undetectable, streaming in real time. I had hours of footage. But tonight, I was going to make it a show. I made my way to the restaurant where they were meeting. Walked in like I owned the place and took a seat at the bar, facing their table, but hidden just enough. My phone was in my hand, streaming everything onto a screen behind me, a screen I had generously paid the manager to display for all the customers to see. And then the moment arrived. She walked in, her face lighting up when she saw him. He stood, kissed her on the cheek, whispered something in her ear that made her giggle like a teenager. Sickening. Then the screen behind me flickered to life. At first, no one noticed. But then a woman at a nearby table gasped. A man nudged his wife and pointed. Murmurs spread like wildfire. And finally she turned around. Her smile froze. Her face drained of color. And then pure horror. Because there in crystal clear HD was her. In his arms. In his house. In our bed. I stood up, taking slow, deliberate steps toward their table. Every eye in the restaurant was on us now, whispers turning into full-blown laughter. I leaned down, resting my hands on the table, and smiled. Surprise. She stammered, eyes darting between me, the screen, and the dozens of people now openly recording her meltdown. This isn't, she started, but I cut her off. Oh no, please keep going, I said, waving toward the screen. Tell me how it's not what it looks like. I'd love to hear your creative writing skills at work. The guy, her lover, was frozen, jaw clenched. He looked around, realizing that he, too, was being broadcasted. But the real fun? His wife walked in. She had seen the live stream. And judging by the look on her face, she wasn't the forgiving type. You son of a... I stepped back as she launched herself at him, screaming, throwing a drink straight in his face before slapping him so hard the entire restaurant winced. Meanwhile, my ex-wife, was still scrambling for words. Please, she whispered, reaching for my arm. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I laughed. Not a bitter laugh. A real one. A mistake. I echoed. No, sweetheart. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. This is a choice. And I'm making mine. I pulled out an envelope and dropped it on the table. Divorce papers, I said. Already signed. Consider it a parting gift. And then for the final touch, I pulled out my phone, hit a few buttons, and transferred every incriminating email, message, and photo directly to her parents. She gasped, snatching her phone out of her purse. I watched as her hands shook, her lips quivering as she read the incoming messages. Mom, how could you do this? Dad, don't come home. And just like that, she crumbled. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I had done what I came to do. I had exposed her for exactly what she was. As I walked out of the restaurant, I took one last look at her, red-faced, humiliated, drowning in the consequences of her own actions. Then I smiled to myself, breathing in the cool night air. She thought she had destroyed me, but in reality, she had just set me free. I drove home that night with the windows down, the cool breeze hitting my face, the weight on my chest finally lifting. I had walked into that restaurant a betrayed man, but I walked out a free one. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car already parked outside. She must have left in a hurry, probably the moment the humiliation became too much to bear. Good. I took my time getting out of the car, savoring the moment. By the time I stepped inside, she was already there, sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. The second she heard me, she jumped to her feet, eyes red and swollen, her mascara smeared. She had been crying. Please, she choked out, taking a shaky step toward me. We need to talk. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Talk. I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Funny. You never seemed interested in talking before. Too busy texting him. She flinched like I had slapped her. I made a mistake, she whispered, voice trembling. I wasn't thinking. You weren't thinking. I cut in, letting out a bitter laugh. Nah. You were thinking plenty. You were thinking when you lied to my face. When you snuck out. When you sat across from him in our bed, talking about how much better he was for you. Her face twisted in pain. I didn't mean it, she pleaded. I was just lost. But I love you, I swear. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the wedding ring. Our wedding ring. The one she had thrown away the moment she decided to betray me. Except now it wasn't the same. I had crushed it, bent it out of shape, just like our marriage. Her eyes widened when I tossed it onto the coffee table with a metallic clink. There's your love, I said coldly. Right there. Ruined. Just like us. She let out a broken sob, her hands shaking. I can fix this, she begged. We can fix this. Please just. No, I said firmly. You broke it. You don't get to fix it. Her face crumbled. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. I shook my head, smiling, but there was no warmth in it. You already did. I turned, heading for the stairs. She rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Don't go, she pleaded, desperation thick in her voice. I stared at her hand on my sleeve, then slowly looked up to meet her eyes. And then, with deliberate calm, I pried her fingers off me. Pack your things, I said, my voice steady. I want you gone by tomorrow. Tears streamed down her face. Where am I supposed to go? She sobbed. Not my problem, I replied, stepping past her. She sank to her knees, shaking, broken. But me? I walked away without looking back. I stepped into the bedroom, my bedroom now, shutting the door behind me, cutting off the sound of her muffled sobs from the living room. I wasn't angry anymore. The rage had burned out, replaced by something colder, something final. I stood in the quiet, letting it sink in. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't living in someone else's lie. I wasn't playing the fool, wasn't bending over backwards to keep a marriage together that had already fallen apart. I was free. I looked around, my eyes settling on small details I had once ignored. The framed pictures on the dresser, ones of us smiling, holding hands, looking like the perfect couple. I picked one up, staring at the two people frozen in time. Lies. The man in that picture? He thought he had a future with the woman beside him. Thought he had a partner, a best friend. But he didn't. I opened the drawer, pulled out a trash bag, and began clearing out the reminders. Every framed photo, every love letter, every keepsake from anniversaries and birthdays. The necklace I had given her on our 5th anniversary? Gone. The stupid stuffed bear she had won for me at a carnival? Into the bag. By the time I was done, the room felt lighter. Cleaner. Like the past had finally been exorcised. I walked back downstairs. She was still there, curled up on the couch, her face buried in her hands. She looked small now. Weak. A far cry from a woman who had smugly lied to my face while sneaking off to be with someone else. She glanced up as I walked past her, her voice hoarse. You really don't love me anymore, do you? I stopped at the front door, gripping the handle. I turned my head just enough to meet her gaze, my expression unreadable. The woman I loved never existed, I said simply. She was just a story you told me. And with that, I walked out. I spent the night in a hotel, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to feel what it was like to be alone again, not in a bad way, but in a new way. To sit in a quiet room and hear only my own thoughts. I ordered a drink from a minibar, sat by the window, and let out a deep breath. She thought she had destroyed me. Thought I'd beg, plead, break down. But I wasn't broken. No, I had rebuilt. And as I stared at the city lights below, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning.